Hi, I'm Reverend Jake Sabe, and welcome to Children's Bible Stories. Alright children, this is another Children's Early Church story. And today's story is the story of Prester John. Now, the accounts of Prester John goes back to the year 1144. So in the year 1145, the Bishop Otto I of Freising in Germany was in the court of the Pope at the time, Pope Eugene III. And this was during the time of the Second Crusade of the Christians against the Muslims, in which the Christians were seeking to take back Israel and the Holy Land from the Muslims. And Prince Raymond of Antioch had sent his bishop, Bishop Hugh of Jabala in Syria, to go and speak with the Pope to see if the Pope could send some help from Europe to go help the Crusaders down in Israel. And Bishop Otto would then, after this, head down to Israel to join in the Second Crusade. But Otto was a chronicler, and he recorded in his chronicles that Hugh had told him about this Christian king in the East known as Prester John. Now, according to the accounts of Hugh, the king was known as Prester John. He had taken the name John, the Christian name, and he was also a prester or presbyter, which is another name for a pastor or a priest. So this was a Christian king who served both as a king and as a priest. And according to Hugh, Prester John had defeated the Muslims at Ecbatana in Persia in a big battle. Take that! And according to Hugh, Prince Raymond, having heard of Prester John's victory against the Muslims, had sent to him and asked for Prester John to assist him in the Second Crusade. And according to Hugh, Prester John had agreed that he would come and help Prince Raymond against the Muslims. However, as he was coming, there was flooding of the Tigris River, and it became too dangerous to cross. And so Prester John and his army could not come and help the Christians in Israel. It was for this reason then that Hugh now came to the Pope to ask for help from the Europeans. Now there is much disagreement and speculation over who Prester John was, because legends about Prester John began to circulate in Europe, and many believed that Prester John was a member of the Thomas Christians in India, and that he was king over India. However, history shows that there was no great Christian king over the land of India, and that Christianity was not that far spread in India. Instead, many people believe that Prester John may have actually been a leader of the Karaite Khanate in Central Asia, because for centuries the Karaite Khanate were ruled by Nestorian Christians. Now the Nestorians were a heretical group within Christianity that divided the two natures of Christ. They believed that Jesus was God and they believed that Jesus was man, but they separated the two natures of Jesus, teaching that Jesus didn't do things as the God-man, but that he did some things as God and some things as man. Such as when Jesus died on the cross, it was not God dying on the cross, it was just the human side of Jesus dying on the cross. That is the area of the Nestorians. Now, Nestorianism had been condemned in Europe and in the West, but it had continued to flourish and spread in the East. And groups like the Karaite Khanate had adopted the Nestorian branch of Christianity. And it was also known as a historic fact that the leaders of the Karaite Khanate often took on Christian names. And so it is very likely that Prester John is one of these Khans that ruled over the Karaite Khanate. Some people identify Prester John with Togrul. However, the problem with this is that Togrul ruled from 1165 to 1203. And the accounts of Prester John defeating the Muslims and coming to help the Crusaders first emerged in 1144. Therefore, it is more likely that Prester John was actually Togrul's father, Kirkakis. This could also be reinforced by the fact that as rumours and legends about Prester John began to spread throughout Europe, there began this new rumour that Prester John's grandson, David, was ruling over a vast empire. And historians have confirmed that the figure believed to be King David, the grandson of Prester John, is in fact Genghis Khan, and that the Western Europeans were just confused because there was a lot of misinformation and little bits of rumours and legends flying around. But what is interesting is that Genghis Khan had married Togrul's niece, meaning that Genghis Khan had married the granddaughter of Kirkakis. This would make Genghis Khan the grandson-in-law of Kirkakis. And so if Kirkakis is Prester John, then this would explain the confusion about Prester John's grandson ruling over this vast empire. It was not Prester John's grandson, but his grandson-in-law, who was Genghis Khan, who was confused and thought to be King David. And so some modern historians just disregard the legend of Prester John as a myth, and that no one by the name of Prester John ever existed. But we know that there were Christians in the East, and we know that in the Karaite Khanate there were Khans, or, local kings who were Christians who used Christians' names and often served as priests in the church. So it is very likely that Prester John is real, and he did exist, and that he was the Khan Kirkakis of the Karaite Khanate. And that's our story for today, children. I've been your host, Reverend Jake Zabel. I hope you've liked learning a little bit about the history and legend of Prester John. Goodbye, and God bless.